In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast, it is part 2. In the last episode, James dropped off his Big Board 3.0 part 1. We covered the top 6 picks and find out who is the biggest surprise in James's lottery on his Big Board 3.0. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast your first, your second, or your third listen of the day. We appreciate each and every listen. And we want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Also, check out the Locked On newsletter at lockedondaily.com. It is your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox every single day. And if you are not subscribed to the NBA Big Board YouTube channel, I'm not sure what is taking so long, but you still have plenty of time. So please subscribe, like, share, comment, click the bell so you can be notified every time we drop an episode, because we are your source for daily NBA draft content. Please check out the last episode, Big Board 3.0. James released his first 6 picks. We talked about Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey. We talked about Jeremiah Fears, who James has at number 4. And then we also talked about VJ Edgecombe and Trey Johnson. And so now in part 2, let's start off with Derik Queen. If you've been following James, whether it's on Twitter or listening to the pods, you know James is very, very high on Derik Queen. And he has Derik Queen at number 7 on Big Board 3.0. All right, the floor is yours. Explain to the new listeners why you are so high on Derik Queen and why you are higher on him than the consensus. And actually, you know what? Before you get into that, I know you want to cook. We got to talk about what his coach said. Now, I'm paraphrasing it here. He made the comment that if Derik Queen were white and European, he would be the number 1 pick in the 2025 NBA draft. I said something similar last year about Tyler Smith, and boy, I did not know so many people would be offended. People were calling me racist.
Don't know how that's racist, but
I don't think that's a racist comment. But on one hand, I'm kind of glad somebody else of another complexion made a similar type comparison. So I guess, is he racist too? I don't know. I mean, I guess anytime you add ethnicity into the equation, it's going to offend some people. But anyway, what were your thoughts on that comment? Because somebody tagged me on Twitter and said that we made a similar comment. I'm like, no.
That was me. I said if his name was Derik Queenovich,
okay,
people would look at him a lot differently. I don't think if his name was Derik Queenovich, he would be the number 1 pick, because I still think that's Cooper Flagg. But let's just say this. Derik Queen, I said it, I don't know when it was, but I said he's the most skilled player in this draft.
You said he's like the most skilled American big.
Oh, yeah. Well, I said that too, but he's the most skilled player in this draft. I think more skilled than Cooper Flagg. Better prospect? No, but most skilled. I think he's the most skilled American big we've seen since DeMarcus Cousins.
I don't know, because I mean, even for example, a guy like Travion Williams from Purdue was very, very skilled. Very skilled. Travion could pass. He was light on his feet. It's just,
but here's the thing.
Him and Edie were playing together. But anyway, go ahead.
Derik Queen can get you work on the block. He rebounds at an extremely high level. He can grab and go. He can beat his man off the dribble. He's a very, very good passer with vision. Creates his own shot at 3 levels. To me, that sounds like the most skilled player.
Elaborate on creates his own shot at 3 levels. Elaborate for those that may not.
How you want it? He throwing the ball in the low post? He's got work on both shoulders, right? Running hooks too. You want him to catch the ball on the elbow? He can face up, hit you with a hesitation pull-up jump. You want to close out to him on a 3-point line? He can beat. I've seen him beat guards off the dribble, wings off the dribble, and centers off the dribble to get layups for himself. He can create his own offense at each level of the floor, and he's showing good touch from the foul line. He's the most skilled player in this draft. The concerns, the questions all come from, again, I'm not going to body shame him because he doesn't look like an action figure, but some people
We don't know that because he wears a t-shirt. We don't know what his
he might
arms
be
look
yoked
like.
up under there.
Man, he
But
could
I'm
be,
saying this. People are going to
Jalen
question.
Duren under there. Hold on, I want to ask something real fast, though.
Go ahead.
If a person is closing out on Derik Queen at the three-point line, their coach has to take him out the game. I mean, he's only shooting 9% from three. Why would you be closing out on a guy shooting 9%?
I mean, the scouting report is a scouting report, but sometimes, man, in the heat of the game, you make mistakes, man. Like, it happens, you know? So, I mean, there was a play, Austin Reeves got a layup against the Warriors, and Andrew Wiggins was it Wiggins? He beat Wiggins. Jonathan Kuminga was out of bounds, face guard, his man. I mean, you know, stuff happens, man. But, I mean, you know, Queen is tough. And, again, the concerns come from what he does on the defensive end, but I pointed out in the video. This video went viral. Like, yo, he can slide his feet with the best of them on the perimeter. So I think he is the most talented. I think that people are going to overthink it because because he's not a run and dunk guy. And, you know, run and dunk guys are sexy right now, but that's not Derik Queen. Now, can he be a play finisher? Absolutely. But you're going to be able to, if you draft Queen, you're going to have somebody who's going to be able to grab a rebound, push the ball up the court, dribble a handoff, or keep it for himself and score. Matter of fact, since Julius Randle's been out, fans, have you seen how effective Naz Reid has been? Right? Now, again, is Queen the shooter that Naz Reid was? No, but we're talking about a matchup problem because a guy that can post, rebound, put the ball on the ground, and just score at 3 different levels. But now Queen is allegedly 2 inches taller than Naz Reid. So I don't know.
I mean,
Naz Reid's going to get paid this summer if he opts out.
But he's shooting the ball.
Yes.
He's shooting the ball. And I think the ball moves better with him on the floor than it does with Julius Randle. I don't know what you do with Julius Randle. But anyway, Derik Queen, I like Queen. I just think that he is I just think is going to be the right fit. I mean, you can say that for every prospect, but I think it's going to be a right fit. I have a friend of mine that's an agent, and he absolutely like bashes NBA teams as far as like their philosophies. And he's the one that I mentioned a few weeks back that said teams are going to pass him up because stylistically he just doesn't look like, you know, a Jalen Duren, or he doesn't. They just said stylistically teams are going to pass him up. But then I do think that he is going to be a difficult eval. One I talked about, one scout told me the team may like him, but the coach may not like him. And if the coach doesn't like you, then he's not going to play you. But I think like when you look at bigs, they usually fit into the box of vertical lob threat, defensive anchor, or floor spacer. And so for him, he doesn't cleanly fit into any of those boxes. So I think it is going to take a unique situation for him.
Hey, all I know is some of the best teams in the NBA, the toughest guards are when your center can do a little bit of everything. And he can do a little bit of everything. So, again, if you want the run and dunk guy, then you should probably take Malawouch. But, you know, hey, if you want somebody who can do a little bit more, I go with Queen.
All right, up next, we're going to talk about Kasparas Jakucionis. Now, I talked about him on an episode I did yesterday. We touched on it briefly when we talked about Jeremiah Fears. Jakucionis is a difficult eval for me. So I'm going to see if James has a better read on Jakucionis. Stay tuned. All right, before I get into the second segment, let's talk about DoorDash, because if you are an NBA fan, get ready. Because if they score, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, I got to make sure I say that slow. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in the game, you can score a huge deal the next day. It is pretty simple. When a player drops 50 or more in a game for the remainder of the 24-25 season, Dash Pass members will get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon until midnight. So you got a little bit of a window. So all you have to do is sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save when a player scores 50 or more in a game. Again, Dash Pass members will get 50% off an order the next day and up to $10 off. All you have to do is use the promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. You must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash.com. All right, second segment. Let's talk about Kasparas Jakucionis. I've mentioned it. He's a difficult read for me. There are some people that think it's easy. They love him. I don't love him. I had a conversation with someone that yesterday, an NBA scout, and his exact words were like, "Man, some games I love him, and then some games I'm like, I don't know." And to me, that kind of sums it up. So, where do you have Jakucionis at on your big board 3.0?
I have Jakucionis on my latest big board at number 11.
And I've
That's
seen some people have him at number 5.
I've seen him on others as high as 3. And that's probably lower than the consensus, but I mean, to each his own. I just feel like I don't question his shooting ability.
I do. 32% from 3. And I mentioned in the last episode, 90 of his 128 threes are off the dribble. 90 of his 128 threes are off the dribble.
Explain that to me. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
To
like,
me,
what is that significant to you? How is that significant to you?
That shooting threes off the dribble is a very difficult shot.
Correct.
So, I mean, I'm not good at math here, but 90 out of 128, it got to be like
75%.
You think it's 75%? That's, let's see, 90 divided by 128.
But what are
70%? So 70% of his shots are difficult shots, but you don't really see him getting the criticism for thriving off taking difficult shots. And when those difficult shots aren't falling, then, you know, he's kind of struggling in a sense, because if the shots are falling, he gets to the paint a little bit better. But because you gotta play up close on him because he's shooting, you know, off the dribble. So with that being said, for me, I have a hard time saying that, despite the things that he does well. Obviously, he's got good size. He rebounds. He passes. But I have a hard time saying, all right, a guy that doesn't generate a lot of paint touches, even though he gets fouled, has a heavy diet of contested step-back threes, and is a turnover machine, is a lock to go in the lottery, which I think he's going to go in the lottery. I just probably have more questions or verbalize them more than
so
others.
I co-sign, and I look at it like when he was making those step back threes, it's because, and I posted it or I talked about it before, like on Twitter with some people, and I was like, the step back threes remind me of Lonzo in the sense that you're making them, but you're making them and you're taking them because you can't really beat guys off the dribble. And I have Jakucionis 11, and I'm a little lower than everybody else because I don't think he consistently can beat guys off the dribble. And again, my thinking is if I'm taking somebody in the top 5, top 6, I need a franchise level point guard. I can't think of a franchise level point guard that can't consistently beat guys off the dribble. And that's my biggest issue with him. I think of like all the guards, he does finish at the rim well, but like the volume of like layups in the half court is like, I want to say Fears was like way higher. And again, better athlete, different playing style. But so you're struggling. And Illinois does play, they have good spacing, right? You're playing with stretch 4, 5 that can make threes too. And I just don't think he can create consistent paint touches. And I also think that while he's a good passer, he turns the ball over a lot because, like I mentioned in the first episode of this, he predetermines a lot of his reads. So he gets caught up in the air because he struggles to beat guys off the dribble. And there's just a lot of live ball turnovers that turn into fast breaks. I think, and I've said it before, I think he's going to be a guy that could play for a long time in the NBA. I don't think he's a franchise point guard, nor do I even think he's your lead guard. He is your, okay, I got really good wing, really good shooting guard, whatever. And I need somebody who can bring the ball up the court, be a playmaker, secondary playmaker, knock down open shots. Like Lonzo.
So check this out, though. Lonzo Ball, I got the numbers here. Shot 47.8% on threes off the dribble at UCLA, but it was on 46 attempts. Jakucionis has already doubled Lonzo's attempts, and he is shooting like 15 percentage points lower.
But Lonzo's shooting was fake in a sense too, because he was a terrible foul shooter too. And he's improved as a shooter, as they cleaned up that funky stuff that he had going on before. But even and again, I know Lonzo is almost a shell of himself because he's hurt because of injuries and knees. But even before the knees gave out, he was a good passer in transition, but he was almost like a corner boy in the half court because he couldn't get to the rim, couldn't really finish, couldn't create his own shot. And it's like, that's to me what sounds a lot like Jakucionis. I know some people was running with the Luka comparison, and I'm like, yo, that's Luka. I can't compare nobody to Luka. But, I mean, again, good player, just not a franchise point guard to me.
Yeah, the thing that makes him such a difficult eval is that I was blown away when I saw how efficient he is at the rim. It's like
you got to dig deeper into those rim numbers, man. I mean, a lot of that efficiency, he does get fouled at times, but it's just like when in conference play, have you seen him just, all right, man, I need a layup and go get a layup?
No, I agree. But like I said, he's a difficult eval for me. I don't know if I'm one of the only people that's publicly going to admit it, because
I admit it. I mean,
look at the numbers, you say, dang, he's rebounding, he's passing, he's crazy efficient at the rim, and he's getting fouled. The numbers and the eye test are on two different pages. And I feel like a lot of people are just looking at the numbers. And if you look at the numbers, he looks good. But I mean, it's crazy for a guy that I'm like, man, he doesn't consistently get in the paint. And I watch the games over and over again. Then I pull up the numbers. I'm like, dang, he's finishing like, it's crazy. The numbers are similar to Dylan Harper as far as if you just look at the raw numbers. That's
and
why
like they said,
I'm an eye test guy. It's like,
I try to do a combination of both. I want to make sure the numbers match the eyes and the eyes match the numbers.
I've talked to some people and they only crunch numbers, and I don't get it. All right, let's switch to Ben Saraf, a guy that had a phenomenal summer. It has carried over to playing for Radio Farm. I mentioned in an episode last week, if I'm an international agent, I'm sending my guy to Radio Farm. It's one of the few places that allows young players to not only play, but play through mistakes. You had Killian Hayes. You had Pacome Dadier. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. 2 first-round picks. This year, you may have 2 first-round picks and Noah Asenge, who I'm very high on, and then Ben Saraf, and you're actually high on Asenge too. So Ben Saraf, why do you have him as a top 10 pick?
You know, what's funny is it is different leagues. But if you run the shooting numbers, I swear, you compare the shooting numbers, his shooting numbers, off the dribble, catch and shoot, all of that stuff, they're very similar to Jakucionis.
Actually, you have my number 12. I'm sorry. You have my number 12. Lottery pick is what I mean.
Yes. I think Saraf is good. He's somebody who is big, who has great size at the position, and uses his size at the position. I think he's going to get to the basket. Off the dribble, he's improved as a shooter. I think he's a good passer. I think he's going to be long-term a sneaky, very good, like, sixth man who has a good balance of shooting and scoring. And again, we're talking about different levels, college basketball versus pros, but he's got some good film out there. And then, in a high usage role, which is not going to happen, but you saw what he did this past summer where he was getting 38s and 40 balls because the ball was in his hand. Like, he's extremely talented. And I think he also did some good things in that exhibition game against Portland. Again, another very pick and roll dominant guy, but he has more off the dribble talent, maybe not to beat you consistently, but he has enough to like create his own shot. Lefty. I think he's going to be good. I think he's probably slept on as far as just because he's playing overseas. But to me, I don't think there is a huge difference between him and what Jakucionis does.
I think there's a big difference. One, I think Saraf is going to be like your combo guard, a big combo guard that you may play him some minutes on the ball, you may play him some minutes off the ball. The question is, does he shoot it well enough to play off the ball? But he is an aggressive driver. He's much more aggressive than Jakucionis when it comes to getting to the rim. He's a much better mid-range shooter, in my opinion, because the mid-range is his bread and butter. If I had to say what is Jakucionis' go-to move, I would say you need to take away the step back three. For Saraf, if I said what you need to take away from him, I'm like, you got to keep him out the paint. He's going left, but he's still going to find a way to get there because he is relentless and aggressive. But then if you take away the drives to the rim, I think because he's so aggressive, the counter is, all right, I'm going to stop and pop and pull up. And at his size, he can shoot over the top of smaller defenders. Like I said, the question is he a 1? Is he a 2? But with his size, it allows him to get away with it. He'll definitely need to be a better three-point shooter, especially off the catch. But he's been productive. I love how competitive he is. I like him.
So you like him just as much as I do?
No, it wasn't a debate. It wasn't a debate at all. But yeah, if I had to pick out what is my concern is what is his position. But I've seen him listed as 6'5". He seems bigger than 6'5". If he is 6'5", then that means he might be listed as smaller than Jakucionis. But the concerns for him outside of the shooting, well, I guess they are related to shooting in a sense, is that he's shooting like 27% from three. And for a guy that loves to get downhill, he's like an average foul shooter. He may be one of those guys that thrives on volume. And you wonder if he's playing a limited role, like off the bench. Like, how do you get the best out of him? Like, he's not a good shooter, but if he's attacking you relentless, playing a lot of minutes per game, he's gonna end up making some jump shots.
Right. So that kind of sounds like. So think about like T.J. McConnell, right? When T.J. McConnell's coming off the bench for the Pacers, like it's the T.J. McConnell show, and he's gonna get to his spots. T.J. McConnell off the ball, he's shooting that granny jump shot that he shoots. I don't know how he shoots that way, but he does. But his catch and shoot opportunities are low because he's best with the ball in his hands. And playing for Rick Carlisle, backup point guard, you're gonna eat because that's just how it works for him. But I think Saraf, like, just give him the ball. Give him the ball. Like I mentioned before, I think he's going to be a sixth man, but give him the ball. Let him run pick and roll. He's going to get fouled. He's going to get to the line. He's going to get downhill. He's going to get to his pull-up jump shot, and you just hope that the catch and shoot numbers improve.
Yep, I agree. One of the things I really worry about with him is the options that he has. If he gets off to a slow start in the NBA and doesn't get the right fit, somebody in Israel is going to be like, hey, man, we're going to give you the keys to the team. And then he's going to have to decide, like, do I, early in my NBA career, I'm kind of fighting for minutes, but I can go home and I can have a high usage. So I think that's something to consider. All right, up next, we're going to talk about Thomas Sorber. James is high on Sorber, rightfully so. And then we're going to talk about Dink Pate. All right, last segment, Thomas Sorber. You have Sorber at number 13 on your big board 3.0. Sorber is next in line as far as big men from Georgetown. We're talking about a school that has a history with bigs from Patrick Ewing to Dikembe Mutombo, Lonzo Mourning, Roy Hibbert, Othello Harrington, Greg Monroe.
Junkyard Dog. Shout out to Junkyard Dog. We saw him at All-Star Weekend.
I don't consider him a big. I can't look at Junkyard Dog and not think about the scout that told me that he's just Ron Holland is the modern day junkyard dog. But anyway, Sorber, you have him as a lottery pick. Explain why.
I think that the stuff that, man, I don't want to sound like I'm hating on the kid, but the stuff that people like about, or they think they like about Ace Sanul, like Sorber does. Defense, passing, rebounding. Ace Sanul is a better athlete, obviously, and run and jump and pogo, but like Sorber is very talented, and like you mentioned before, if he like cleans up the baby weight, then there's another level of vertical explosion that he hasn't shown you yet. But I'm buying him being able to eventually stretch the floor, or at least being that being a part of his game, because he is a below the rim big, but he can pass. He should be able to be somebody that you can. He can make plays out the short roll. Also, should be able to make plays out of dribble handoff. Actually, you see how important that is in today's NBA. When you have a big that can, like, look at like Isaiah Hartenstein, right? Isaiah Hartenstein is special not just because he's a run and jump guy who defends, but he's a very good passer, right? He can hit guys on the cut. He can free up SGA. He was freeing up Brunson last year. Like Sorber should be able to make plays and dribble handoff, and I think he's one of the best defenders in this draft. So again, is he gonna have to? I guess I don't want to be disrespectful, but clean up his physical image. Yes, get more slender. Yes, get in better shape. I get it, and the three balls got to improve. Again, the percentages don't indicate that he shoots it well now, but I do believe he will have to just to optimize because he's not a run and dunk big, but I just think he has a lot of talent, and I think that he is next in line for like bigs in this draft.
Yeah, this isn't a draft that has a lot of bigs with ideal positional size. It's like you either have a big that has size, but Molly Walsh has the best physical tools in this draft for a center. Rocco Zakarsky, I always forget which one it is. He has the size of like 7'2", 7'3", talking about the big man from Australia, but he's not playing. And then after that, how many 7-footers are there?
My man Yang.
I like Hanson Yang, but other than that, I don't think there's really any other 7-footers. Danny Wolf, yes. But he's not, a 5. Maybe I don't even know what position Danny Wolf is. Danny Wolf is just a hooper. Maybe he's the guy that you put at the 5 here and there, but you kind of use him more so as a weapon. But I'm talking about like traditional 5s. Does Queen fit into your traditional 5? No. Does Ace Sanul fit into your traditional 5? No, I think it's situational. Sorber to me is a 5, and he's a player that I wonder. And I always try to think of like, when you look at big boards and when I'm doing my big board, I always try to think of, all right, why is this player ahead of this guy? And one of the things with Sorber that I think about is he considered a first-round pick now because he didn't have any buzz coming into the season? If he came into the season with first round hype, will we be talking about him as a lottery pick, consistent lottery pick? You have him in the lottery, but it's like he was playing catch up in a sense. And sometimes if you enter the season high on the draft board and a guy that played the exact same was not on the draft board, the guy who entered the season on the draft board ends up getting drafted higher because maybe it was the high school hype. So if Sorber entered the season with a lot of buzz and fanfare, I wonder would he be consistently listed as a lottery pick? And to me, when I think of Sorber's potential, I just go back to that Providence game where he had that first half where he showed you everything. Shots. He just showed you everything that he can be. And I think that he still has a lot of potential, and he's only just scratching the surface of what he can be.
Yeah, I just hope this is not saying that he won't, but I hope he measures out to be truly like 6'10".
Yep, that'd be interesting. All right, Dink Pate, you have Dink. Go ahead. I'll let you say it.
I'm on the island here, and I'll stand on the island. I got Dink Pate at 14. 14 is a spot where teams are looking for somebody to contribute who can't contribute right away. I get it. But if you told me, again, let's eliminate that Dink Pate plays in the G League. Close your eyes. Don't do it if you're driving and listening to the podcast. But if I told you that there was a 6'8" wing with handles, not could dribble, but with handles, who the previous year didn't shoot the ball well, but played point guard. The next year, he's more into an off the ball role, but he's improved his shooting percentages drastically. Very not a good athlete, a very good athlete. I'm talking just length, hops, like he's got a dunk package, and he can create his own shot, advanced handle, advanced shot creation. The idea of him being a point guard is probably out the way. I don't think he is a point guard at the next level, but he can pass in a sense where beat your man off the dribble, he can make the right read. If I told you that an 18-year-old who's played 2 seasons of professional basketball was available at 14, you'd be like, what's wrong with him? Who is this kid? Or, hey, what country is he from, right? You know how that goes, Ralph. I'm going to just keep it a stack with you. You're my brother. But because Dink plays in the G League, I don't know why people may not look at him the way that they look at some of these other kids, especially when, no disrespect, but especially when you got guys like Carter Bryant, his name is climbing, right? And that's, again, he's defending, but that's a lot of potential. You know what I'm saying? Dink has a lot of potential, a lot of upside. And I'll stand here on this island because he's knocking down threes, handles. He still may be able to turn into a secondary playmaker, but he can create his own shot. And again, he's a legit, he's not 6'6", you know what I'm saying, with a combed out fro. Like, he's legit 6'8". I don't know why I'm the only one here.
Well, here's why I think. One, all right, as far as the shooting, the G League stats are kind of difficult. In the G League tip-off tournament, he played 16 games and he shot 40% from three.
Okay.
Now,
that's 16 games. That's a good sample size.
Now, when you go through the G League regular season, he's listed as shooting 27% from three. Okay. And that is over 21 games. And so I think...
What's the total?
For the total, they got him at, they split it up in the two. But when you look at like the regular season, G League regular season, a Dink Pate, a person that isn't sold on Dink is going to say over 52 games, regular season G League games, he's at 24% from three and 36% from the field, along with 2.9 assists and 2.2 turnovers. Well, a person that is probably going to judge him a little bit fairly would say, yes, last year he was 17 years old playing in the G League, should have been in high school. He did have some strong flashes at the end of the year as a point guard, but I think that was the main appeal for him, was maybe he can be a 6'8" point guard. And then this year, he's looking to score more, not playing as much as a lead ball handler, and his turnovers are outweighing his assists.
Right, and that's why I don't necessarily think he's a point guard. Just kind of seeing some of the decisions that he makes when to me, he's a better reactionary passer than a set guys up kind of guy. You know what I'm saying? So come off the screen, hit the dunker, he can do that. But we're trying to run a set, and that's where he kind of like starts to struggle. But again, like I said, we're talking about an 18-year-old. He is 18, not 19. He'll be 19 this year. We're talking about an 18, 19-year-old who, again, improved as a shooter. We're talking about, look, even if Dink is shooting currently, the accumulation of all the games, he's shooting 33% from three. But that's the NBA line, right? Nobody else is shooting from the NBA line. And we want to talk about Madas had to make an adjustment going from college to the NBA, or excuse me, high school to the NBA line. Dink made that same adjustment, and I believe Dink is shooting better than Manas did last year. So I'm buying him improving as a shooter. I think he's still coming together of who he is as a player, but I personally don't think he's a point guard, but I think he's a guy that can score, create his own offense, and can pass. And the last thing I'm going to say about Dink, we saw last year, again, totally different draft, but A.J. Johnson's numbers were terrible, god awful in Australia, right? And he went very, very high, and it wasn't based off of his numbers. Again, this is not A.J. Johnson slander because he can hoop. This is based off of, oh, shoot, this kid has talent. I know he's a couple years away, but he gets to it. Why would we not look at a 6'8" guy who may not have as much get to it, but does have some get to it in the same way where we sit here and say, man, in a couple years, how do we pass on a 6'8" guy that can shoot, pass, and dribble? Or at least has the potential to.
Fair points. Fair points. I don't have a lot to say about the A.J. Johnson pick. I was as shocked as everyone else. And on that note, we are going to wrap up this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast. We are out of time. Once again, thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Check out the Locked On newsletter at lockedondaily.com. Once again, it's Rafael and James, and we are out of here.